I think artists, rappers, especially young rappers, I don't think they actually realise the power of rap, the frontal cortex, and how it's so easily captured. You capture people in a moment.
Yeah.
And that's what the powers that be are frightened of.
Yes, of course it is. It's the power of the revolution.
Yeah.
It really is the power of the revolution. I mean, if we was to look at the industry and the market again, I know lots of people think to themselves, how can I get my talent outside of my immediate bedroom to the world, to the fans, gain a fan base, etc., etc. And I think with trying to get music out, a lot of people seem to want to turn to the majors, so they're willing to almost compromise their integrity for the limelight.
Yeah.
That can be dangerous. See, artistic integrity has always been driven by how we feel, and it could never be compromised, bought or sold. So we're very powerful in the integrity that we feel about our passion for music, and how music can be revolutionary and change people. I think if we look at what have been cornerstone changes for cementing how me and Mono felt, would have been at a time when hip-hop was being fully embraced. We're recognising it outside the spectrum of hip-hop, like Wordsworth and Kipling, etc. Benjamin Zephaniah, absolutely, who we grew up as a big fan of. So watching all of these people bring what they was bringing to the table, when you say the power of music, whilst we was definitely absorbing a certain amount of consciousness where we was driven towards truth-seeking, all of a sudden we heard, dun, dun, yes, the rhythm, the rebel. And we was like, what?
Noise and rebellion and
rebellion sound, rebel sound, bomb squad.
It was the anarchist punk movement in our generation, in our culture, in our movement of hip hop, and it resonated like, man, it resonated like a fish to water with me and Mongo. And then it was like, we've got to hear more of these artists. What they're called the public's enemy. You know? What's that album called? Bomb Rush the Show, was it? Songs like My Uzi Weighs a Ton. You see these car keys, you never get
bass heads.
Like, man, the revolution, the message, the security of the first world, Flavor Flav being like the courthouse jester of the King's Speech, being Chuck D, brought to you so powerful and
combination,
and the combination of it all. It was just what we needed when we needed it. We had been listening to the Poor Righteous Teachers, and that was our vibe. It was like, yeah, them man are on our wave, you know. But when Public Enemy came out, you know, the KRSs and all that, they were on our wave because we was living it as they was talking it. But when Public Enemy came out, we was like, that's our calling.
KRS brought the reggae thing into play.
But not only that, I feel that him, that
Just Ice.
Sorry, I was about to spit on your floor when saying his name, but what I feel was the poetics, that he brought poeticism, and he opened up not just rap. It's not just really rap. It's just like something else. And he was one of the first like lyrical like lexicons or whatever. You know, he would bring in words that no one's. It's like what education? Just how Papoose did with his law libraries, and like he would open up things. You know what I'm saying?
Can I say? I'd like to interject that where he pointed out the reggae element of KRS-One's work, which he could hear those blatant undertones. There's a lot of things I'd like to say here. Obviously, I've said it before and I'll say it again. We identified with hip-hop immediately because it was birthed out of the reggae sound system that we felt we had a claim to in England more than anywhere else outside of Jamaica. So hip-hop was ultimately ours.
Hold Tight Ragged Twins, Tipper Ivory.
People of the hip-hop genre after Kool Herc wouldn't recognise the I-Roys, the U-Roys,
but they'd get it on the second wave through hip-hop.
So, but the second wave didn't know the rooted foundation of who were the first rapping MCs, which was the I-Roys, the U-Roys, the Lieutenant Stitchies, the
Papa Sons, and
and so we was very versed in that. So when hip hop was evolving in its very infantry stages, we would thrive to seek music that had that element of reggae spice in it. I remember there was a tune. Why are you scratching at the record? Just easy, pops. I'm just mixing the cool reggae with the massive hip hop. So we was thriving to hear elements of reggae in our
In
hip hop.
everything.
In everything.
Even if acid, scacid,
Yeah.
ska and acid, they mixed it up.
So,
Whatever it was.
So, I mean, we even came from an element that before rapping, we had been brought to our attention of toasting and chanting
Yeah.
on the microphone sound systems before we was ever brought to our attention about hip hop. So we was birthed and rooted and grounded in the foundations of dancehall before hip hop came to us. So it was a natural transition for us to understand from Latin to English.
But even like, I think dancehall clashes in itself and things like that is like one of the biggest shows you're ever gonna get. Just from we heard it on tape and then we start to see it on video, it's like shit.
I would love to have
Like,
seen that.
You know?
They just
Unattended.
did,
Yeah. It's crazy.
I would have loved to have just been in that.
Engrossed in it.
Oh,
yeah,
mate.
yeah.
Oh, man.
I think I would have liked to have been a teenager in the 60s. You know, the Motown era, the Isaac Hayes.
Oh,
the,
yeah, with
like,
the,
if
with
we
the
could dream
suit,
about what
kind
we-
of pre-mod kind
yeah,
of look.
yeah, I'm kind of like, I don't know, I might have been totally shagadelic, but but I know that I love what I hear of the Motown era. I think that towards the ending of the 60s, throughout the 70s, was when instrumentalists, composers and musicians and vocalists had reached their pinnacle of their skill just before it turned into the synthetic digital revolution switchover.
I'm going to hand it to you, I agree.
So I believe that's why hip hop always looked back to sample some of that great instrumentation that had reached its pinnacle.
Pinnacle.
People like who's the guy who produced for Michael Jackson, Quincy Jones.
Quincy Jones, yeah.
And, you know, like that whole Barry Gordy.
Yeah.
Barry Gordy.
Phil Spector?
Yes. You know, and then came Kraftwerk, which blew us out the water. So I mean,
definitely.
we
They led the world.
transitioned
Changed
from
everything.
hip hop. I mean, music being at the pinnacle of instrumental. You know, vocalists being at the pinnacle of their skill, and then it all turned into what the hell is this? Because it was banging, it was Kraftwerk, it was digital, it was
Flipped
synthetic.
it on
Oh,
its
but
head.
Cats as well, my man. What's his name? Thingy Cats up. Din da da, din da da. What's his name? Bernard Cats. What's his name?
Oh my God.
Is it Cats? It's
Tour de
something
France,
Cats.
yeah, Tour de France,
No,
that geezer.
No, Tour de France is Kraftwerk, but Din da da is something Cats. What's his name? Katz.
Answers on the comments below, people. You know the deal.
Yeah.
Digging in the crates crew.
Yeah, exactly.
Watch the
What is it,
video
man?
for that as well. That Din da da.
Yeah, we'll get it up on the screen.